Phil and Will are back with our second edition of our prediction episodes. We're going to be predicting stuff for episode 3 here. What we're going to do is we're going to go through power rankings where me and Will are each going to list who we think's the safest down to who we think is going to be the one to get booted this week. And we're also going to go over some of the predictions that some of our fans have had, and as well as some. Wait, what was the look for there, Will? And some of the stuff. Oh, sorry. And then some of the stuff, anyway, that questions and predictions that you guys have had all sending us on Twitter and the YouTube comments. Willie threw me off. I don't know what he's smiling about. But anyway, Willie.
No, I mean, I just like how you said fans. I would have said like subscribers, but hey, I guess they are fans. I mean, we don't know.
If they subscribe, they're fans.
I mean, sure, yeah. Well, we can call them fans, I guess. Yeah, we'll get into those predictions as well. Yeah, do you want to start? Who's at the top of your power rankings?
Well, this is kind of tough because with the 3 tribes, it's kind of hard to tell when CBS is just trying to throw you off and when CBS is, like, because they can only throw you off so much. You know, like they used to, when there's only 2 tribes, they tell you, like, one tribe might go to tribal, and you can kind of gauge, like, would that person really be the one to go home? But, like, with 3 tribes, it's really hard to tell who's going to lose each and every week. So I kind of went the safe route here. I put 3 no-callers right at the top of my list. Number 1, I got Joe, because after last week's episode, he's completely safe. Like, now he has no opposition. Vince is gone. Joe's safe for a while.
Right, and I think we're going to have a pretty similar thing to start here. That alliance of 3 on no caller, they're not going anywhere. I mean, Jen, Haley, and Joe. I have Joe number 1, Haley number 2, Jen number 3. They're interchangeable. Those 3 are, when you have a tight 3 in a group of 5, you really don't have anything to worry about. Nina and Will, they could have an idol. Something could happen, but I just don't think those 3 have anything to worry about.
Yeah, I have the exact same top 3 as you, Joe, Haley, Jen. I just don't see where anything could go wrong now, unless they actually did find an idol, which it doesn't seem like they did. It seems like Vince got a really bad rap on this edit, and they didn't really get into his gameplay much, because it seems like there was a lot more of a game being played by him, and he actually caused the others to split their votes because they thought Nina had an idol. I also, though, because they didn't show that, I'm thinking that Nina doesn't find an idol, because otherwise they kind of would have tried to hint at, like, Nina might find an idol soon. So I think that the 3 of them are just solid. There's no way.
Yeah, totally. And with Vince's idol, we just didn't see any of it, and that's why we were so confused why that 3 was splitting votes. Why there was no evidence of anyone having an idol, and supposedly Vince was saying, just day by day, he was saying, Nina's going to the woods looking. She's looking really hard. We don't know where she is. I really think she has an idol. And then I think by the day they voted, he told them, yeah, she straight up showed me the idol. So I think they had way more reason to split the votes, and we were saying it was crazy, why do that, but it does make a lot more sense now. So savvy move by Vince. I guess they didn't want to show Vince being this great player and then getting him, he goes home second. So it wouldn't look good to the audience. It's like, wow, that's kind of a really smart move, a smart play by Vince to get the alliance to split the votes, and then he goes home. So I think that's why we didn't see it.
They didn't give us much sympathy for Vince, which, Joe, I think, was on Twitter or somewhere. He was saying that, Vince scared them, and, like, Vince got, like, a really raw deal with his edit. And I thought that was kind of, like, telling, because in the game they weren't close at all. But clearly Vince had put some fear into Joe for Joe to split that up. Because, as the audience watching, you're like, why would they ever split this? There was no hinting at this at all. I'm surprised they didn't tell you anything, but at the same time, I think they wanted Vince to be the creepy, weird guy. They're going to edit it the way they want you to see it. They wanted Vince to be an early season villain, probably because the Jen, Joe, Haley thing's going to work out a little bit, and they wanted it to be. They overcame their first obstacle, and now what are they going to have to do next to keep it going?
Yeah, I think Nina is a pretty easy first boot. It depends. Do you think they're going to be mad at Will? Like, Will, what's the deal? You didn't vote Nina. What's going to be that kind of response?
I don't think they're going to be mad at Will. I heard, like, I've been seeing some people think that they're going to be mad at Will, and yeah, they wanted Nina to go home, but at the same time, Will didn't vote out Jen. He voted out Vince, and yeah, they might be like, well, we really needed Vince, but it was like, well, Vince had two votes anyway. Like, two of you voted for Vince. Vince was going to be your next choice. I just didn't trust Vince. I think that he has a pretty good argument there. I still think Nina's next. I don't think Will is really in much trouble unless Nina can pull something or Will really blows the challenge again.
Right, yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think they'll be totally cool with it. I mean, it's not who they wanted to go, obviously, but like you said, it was definitely on their hit list anyway. Okay, so yeah, your top three and my top three are the same. Who do you have at 4?
I have Max at 4. And
Interesting.
yeah, that's kind of high. I was a little worried putting him there, but the way him and Shireen are together, and I don't feel like Carolyn would turn on them, I just don't think Max is in any sort of trouble. He's got the idol in his alliance. He's got a really tight ally, and I feel like Tyler's even with them. Tyler might be going more towards Joaquin, but I don't know. I just feel like Max is right there. You know, this. I don't think he's in trouble at all this week. He might be next week, but this week he's fine.
See, with Max, in that last episode, Tyler became very wary of Max and says, yeah, he's kind of putting on a show, but I think Max is a lot smarter than he is. And if Tyler goes with Joaquin, all they need is just one more person, whether it be Carolyn or Shireen, more likely Carolyn, because Carolyn and Tyler are kind of bonded by that idol because Carolyn told Tyler that. And so it wouldn't be like the craziest thing in the world for Tyler, Carolyn, and Joaquin to say Max is too much of a threat. Let's send him home. And this is a tribe of people who know the game pretty well and are probably expecting a tribe swap somewhere down the road. So keeping strength in mind isn't necessarily the number one priority with them. As we saw with them voting out So if their first tribal council, they could have voted out Karen or Shireen. And, strength paramount. And it's becoming less and less paramount as we get further into the season.
Yeah, and I just don't see Carolyn flipping on them. I feel like that's who she's the tightest with right now. I feel like she's not going to flip on them. I feel like if she's going to flip, she's going to do it too late. I don't feel like it's going to come up now. I just don't see it happening yet. So I don't know. I think Max is plenty safe.
Okay. I have Sierra at 4, followed by Kelly at 5, and I'll just do these two together because it's the same argument. We don't know much about the blue collar dynamics because they haven't gone to tribal yet. Let's assume you have Mike and Dan kind of on the outs, and then you have Rodney and Lindsay seem to be together, and that's the only ones we're getting confessionals from. We got last episode we got a confessional from Rodney about Mike wanting to work so much, Lindsay about Dan. So we saw that in the premiere that they kind of formed a bond. So let's assume Rodney and Lindsay are together and Mike and Dan are together. This leaves Kelly and Sierra in the middle. So I don't think they're the ones going to be targeted. So if blue collar goes, I do think Mike and Dan are in the most danger because Sierra and Kelly will likely side with Rodney and Lindsay. But I think Sierra and Kelly are safer than Rodney and Lindsay. So that's why I have Sierra and Kelly this high up. And I have Sierra over Kelly just because Sierra is just a younger chick, probably less likely to screw up a challenge. So,
well, I have Sierra and Kelly at 6 and 7, and I pretty much put them there for the same reasons. But I can't skip my number 5. But I mean, everything you said about Sierra and Kelly, we haven't gotten enough of them. They're not going to be an invisible third boot. Normally, if there's an invisible boot, it normally happens right around the merge, maybe even after the merge. You don't normally get invisible boots this early because they want – like, Vince got a lot of confessionals. So got a bunch of confessionals. I have a feeling whoever goes this week is going to be somebody who's had a lot of confessionals because they want you to get to know these early characters because they're pretty much dividing it into two halves of a season. They want you to connect with this storyline the first time and then this storyline the second time. Sierra and Kelly don't seem to be a huge part of the storyline right now, so I have them at 6 and 7. But at number 5, I have Tyler. And he's another one like Max. I honestly don't think White Collar is going to Tribal this week. I don't think there's any chance they go to Tribal this week. I don't know why. I just have a really good feeling. So I have Tyler at 5.
Okay.
What's that?
I mean, to say you don't think there's any chance. I mean, yeah, sure they won the last challenge, but these 3 tribes are pretty close physically. And I know No Collar definitely took a hit by losing Vince. But I think it's anyone. I mean, any given challenge, any team could just any tribe could go to tribal. So I kind of have my more spread out than you, but I don't think Tyler is all that safe, and I'll get to why once I get down to my rankings. But I understand that your thinking is probably if they're gonna go with strength as the reason why they vote, they're probably gonna take out one of the chicks, and then if they're gonna go with trust as the main reason, they'll probably take out Joaquin. So I see where your head's at, but I just have Tyler a good bit lower down. So I'll explain why once we get down there.
My thing is with Tyler, because I know that the idol is in Carolyn's pocket, and I know Joaquin isn't going to have it, and I know Joaquin's not going to be able to trick them into saying he has it. Like you said, if they go with trust, Tyler's not going anywhere. He's not solid with them, but he's solid enough. If they go with strength, Shireen or Carolyn's going because Tyler's really strong. There's really no reason for them to get rid of Tyler this week. Like I said, I just don't think they're going. I don't know why. I just have like a good feeling this week. But because I feel like No Collar.
Who do you think is going?
I think No Collar really messed up last week, and I think No Collar has the best chance to go. And then I would say Blue Collar after that, because I just feel like No Collar blew it getting rid of Vince because he was so strong, and it looks like this week's challenge is a strong one. Like you have to carry those buckets with the water in it, dump it. It looked like it was like a crazy obstacle course thing. I think No Collar's in a little bit of trouble, and if they don't win, I think Blue Collar will lose, just because they're really playing up this whole feud at Blue Collar, and it's been brewing for the first 2 episodes, and I think that it's coming to a head this one.
Yeah, I don't. It's so hard to make a prediction on who's going to tribal. No Collar definitely seems to be the weakest right now without Vince, but again, it's been so close each time. It's really hard to say. So for me, number 6, I have Rodney, and this is because, I mean, we just did the Blue Collar stuff, but go back to it. Let's say somehow Mike and Dan get Kelly and Sierra on their side. Who are they going to target? It's not going to be Rodney. It's going to be Lindsay. So I think it's still highly unlikely, and I have Lindsay actually at 8. No, at 7. So I go Rodney and Lindsay back to back, because that'd be the only really way they go home, is if somehow Mike and Dan get Kelly and Sierra, which we haven't seen enough of Kelly and Sierra to really know that, but I think we're safe to assume that we've seen Kelly and Sierra at least laugh at Dan, and they seem to be closer to Rodney and Lindsay.
Okay, I have Rodney a little bit lower. I have Lindsay real low, and I guess I'll get into that more when I actually get to Lindsay, but I feel like the way that they've edited this, they might be editing it for like a Dan comeback almost. Like I really do feel like Dan's getting a really good edit here, where it's like he's going to be the one on the comeback. I still don't think he's safe, but I almost feel like him and Mike together, somehow they're going to pull something off. I'm not putting all my trust in that happening, but I kind of feel like there's a good chance of that happening just the way it's being shown so far. They've been leaving out a lot of stuff. And I feel like it's going to be a battle for Sierra and Kelly, and whoever wins this week is probably going to go to the merge pretty easily, unless there's some type of shakeup or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a shakeup, probably episode 4 or 5. That's when we usually see it. So not this week just yet. But yeah, I hear you with the Blue Collar, with Lindsay being lower. I just think Dan and Mike are just in so much more danger than any of the other Blue Collar members. So yeah, you can go next. What are you at now? I just did 6 and 7.
I did 6 and 7 earlier with Sierra and Kelly being Sierra 6, Kelly 7. I have number 8. I have Shireen, because I do think she's in tight enough with Max and probably Carolyn. I think that she's in tight enough. If she blows a challenge, she's in trouble. But I have her at 8. I don't know. I have a good feeling about Shireen. I don't think she's going anywhere just yet. This might just be my white collar bias, but really from here on, it's hard for me to rank them because there's so many ways it can go. Like there's a lot of ways that this can go right now.
Yeah, there are, and that's especially because there's 3 tribes, like we said. But Shireen, I have way lower, just because if she really messes up a challenge, like she's already messed up one. She kind of has her free pass. Look, the puzzle was 50 pieces. It's kind of harder than was advertised by Jeff. So she has just not as much wiggle room, I think. If she really struggles at another challenge, they very well might say, look, Tyler's been pretty trustworthy. He voted with us last time. We don't really need Shireen, and it could be a Max, Carolyn, Tyler thing. And we know Carolyn and Tyler already kind of have some sort of alliance. The thing about last week's episode, we just saw the white collar people getting naked, and we didn't really get much about who's with who. It seemed Joaquin was making a little bit of ground with Tyler, and he's in some sort of good graces, but we don't. It's not as clear cut. Like no color we know there's that tight three, and Jen, Haley, and Joe are just way, way more tighter than Max, Carolyn, and Shireen. I mean, Shireen. We just haven't seen really enough of them since their first tribal council. So I'm a little bit wary on Shireen, and if she does prove to be kind of this liability at challenges, I could totally see her going.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said, though, last week all we saw at White Collar was them getting naked. And I feel like if they were going to go to Tribal this week, we would have seen more strategizing from them last week. Like last week we saw a lot of strategizing from Blue Collar and a lot of like the dynamics at Blue Collar. Even though we don't have a good feel of where they are, they did purposely show that. Whereas at White Collar, you didn't really get like, yeah, it might have bothered Tyler that Shireen was naked. But like you didn't get as much in terms of like who's with who there. So I feel like if White Collar was going to go this week, they would have kind of told us a little bit more last week about like who is really in the most trouble. Because even like Joaquin, I didn't really get a vibe that he was in as much trouble. So, but like with the other tribes, I feel like you know better who's in trouble. Granted, on all these tribes, I feel like there's 2 or 3 people who could go every single week. Like this week, I feel like there's 2 or 3 on each tribe that can go.
Yeah, it's very, very wide open. I have this is my highest white collar ranked at number 8. I have Carolyn, and the thing with Carolyn is that if there is kind of a switch up with this alliance, if Max, Shireen, and Carolyn don't stay tight, if anyone's going to be kind of safe from that, I think it's Carolyn. Like she's close with Tyler, and she's also close with Max and Shireen, and she has the idol. So if anyone were to vote her out, she could play the idol, which we saw her make a really good decision not to play in the first tribal, so maybe she's pretty good at reading people and can tell. So she's got the idol, and what also helps having the idol, it's a huge risk to vote for someone with an idol because that leaves you vulnerable. So if you put 3 votes on Carolyn, she plays it, you don't know where the vote's going to go, and that's just a huge risk to take. And I think we have these white collar players who aren't going to put all their eggs in saying Carolyn's not playing the idol. So I just don't think Carolyn is in danger at all. So I think I have her highest on the white collar tribe.
Yeah, I mean, I have her as the 4th white collar out of all of them. Like I have the 3 I've listed. Joaquin I have at 5, and then I have Carolyn at 4. I don't know. I just feel like they might almost lull Carolyn to sleep at some point, where it's like, yeah, we're all tight, and she really thinks they're tight together, and then out of nowhere they just blindside her, and she really doesn't see it coming. And I could really see that happening. Because they're pretty savvy over there. I wouldn't be surprised if they completely blindsided her.
What would be the reason to get rid of Carolyn, right? If let's say white collar loses, goes to tribal, I just don't see the scenario.
Well,
who kind of spearheads that mission?
I guess it would be. I think it would probably be Tyler, to be honest with you. I think Tyler would be the one to do it, but I don't think Tyler's going to. I don't think Carolyn's going home. I have her lower, but I don't think she's going home.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I'm still in my range where I don't think these people are going, but they could go. You know what I mean? Like 8 through 12, I'm like, I don't think they're going to, but they really definitely could.
Right. No, it's tough. So yeah, I have Carolyn at 9, or no, at 8. So yeah, you can go now.
I got Rodney at 9, and I just have him a little bit lower in case something like funky happens over there, like where there's like a feud, and it's like we should take, the division happens, and then I don't think Rodney's going to go once again because he's too strong. There's no way they're going to get rid of him as the blue collar tribe. They can't get rid of Rodney already. But if he really does start to make everybody mad, they could very easily just say, you know what? Let's get rid of him. We still have Mike. Dan proved himself last week. He's not the strongest guy, but he proved himself as more than capable. He's stronger, I think, than at least one person on each of the other tribes. And then the women are all they're all pretty damn athletic. So I could see them getting rid of Rodney if worse came to worse. So I have him at 9. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. But if something weird happened, I don't want to have him all the way up at like number 1 or 2 and then have him be screwed.
See, I think the weird thing would be for Rodney or Lindsay to go, just because Dan and Mike have been shown first in the premiere. Dan totally on the outs, just terrible social game, bossing people around, and then Mike last episode just did the same thing. So I think they're building towards one of them two going home. So I would really be shocked if Rodney or Lindsay were to go home. And again, I think Rodney is he's strong. That why would you get rid of him this early? And it's the first time they're going to tribal. So I do hear you though. We're not really into the people we really think are going yet. So I have at 9 Will, and this is probably my last person who I don't think is in that much danger. You mentioned this briefly earlier. Only way Will goes home is if he messes up the challenge again, and they say, look, Nina actually performed better than Will, whether he's just huffing and puffing, carrying that jug of water, and he just can't do it, and it's kind of Will's fault. And we have this strong three of Joe, Jen, and Haley that just have all the power, and it's just up to them. And if they think that Will is kind of not the best at challenges, and that Will went against them last time, not totally against them, but he didn't vote the way he was supposed to. So they have more than one reason to vote Will if he screws up in the challenge.
Well, what Will did is, I don't even think Will realizes he did it, because I don't think he's that good I don't think he's as savvy as that move made him look. Like, I don't think that he's as savvy as that, but now they might look at him and say, you know what? Will wanted Vince gone. He got rid of him. We need to keep an eye on Will now. And if they think that Will's more threatening, and let's say they don't go this time, and let's say blue collar goes and the numbers are even, and then they don't go the next time, there might be a period where they're like, you know what, we should get rid of Will before Nina because it's not going to hurt our numbers that bad. And because I don't know if we can completely trust Will.
Yeah, he proved that, because I think, he did a handshake and a pound with Joe saying, yeah, I'm on board voting Nina, and then just didn't. And if you match that with Will being super weak, he doesn't stand a good chance. But again, Nina is so low, I don't know if Will can get below Nina. Nina is totally on the outs with her whole blow up. She's not that strong. She's older. She's got the hearing thing. Just so much working against Nina. That's kind of why I have Will so high for how many reasons why he could go. He has Nina as like his buffer.
Yeah. The whole thing, it's going to depend on, if no collar loses this week, they have to get rid of Nina because she's just too weak. I think Will's really weak too, but I think they're just going to get rid of Nina. She's smaller. She's causing more controversy in the camp, so I think she would go. But the whole thing is, right now, Nina's like a lost puppy, and she might be loyal to them right now. But if they go to a swap or something, which is coming, there's going to be something. I mean, they've teased up a twist really big. And if that happens...
The tribe swap wouldn't be a twist at this point. It happens so regularly that...
There might be something on top of that tribe swap. Like, I don't know what, but there could be something. And if they mix up, I don't know if they're going to want to hang out with Nina. Like, imagine if Joe, Jen, or Haley get stuck, one of them, just with Nina on a tribe. Nina could flip on them in a second, and they're done. So it's a really tricky situation with where Will and Nina are right now for this no-collar tribe, I feel like.
Right. I couldn't agree more. They are definitely on the bottom of that tribe.
Yeah. All right, so should I go on to number 10, or do you want to start getting into some other stuff, or...
Sure, you had a tweet that you wanted to talk about. Maybe bring that up, take a break from the power rankings.
Yeah, just because we've been actually doing, since we've been kind of going over the twist anyway, we had a tweet at us from Ravinder Sharma, and he said he was wondering about that twist. What will it be? Do you think it's going to be? He gave like some examples, like Redemption Island, Exile, Special Idol, Outcast Tribe, Tribes Co-inhabiting instead of the merge. What do you think? I mean, there's no way they do Outcast because Jeff's already said that he wouldn't do Outcast. But you and me have kind of talked about this twist, but we haven't really given our...
Right. The thing about what that tweet said, I mean, it's a great question, but it's something new. Jeff has said this is something we've been playing with for a long time. It's some sort of advantage, and it works out great. Those are like the three things we know. And it works out great. It doesn't really help us figure out what it is, but it's not something they've done before, and it's an advantage. So those are kind of our only two pieces of information to work with, and I'm getting the feeling that it has something to do with votes. Never in Survivor everyone gets one vote going into Tribal. That's it. That's that. I think we may see an extra vote maybe a package of votes. Maybe you have the ability to nullify someone's vote. I mean, this is speculation, but I think they've twisted so many parts of this game while the voting has remained it just remained unchanged in season 1.
Yeah, I agree. There really hasn't been anything done with the voting, but do you think that that's going to complicate things like too much? Like, do you think that's not even complicated? Do you think it's almost going to take away from? Well, I guess not so much because you do have the hidden immunity idols. It's almost like playing a hidden immunity idol, but you only get to like stop a vote, which I guess could be kind of cool, or you get to get an extra vote. But that could really, really that changes everything. Now all of a sudden somebody's worth 2. That's that would be crazy.
Yeah, I could see someone having 2 votes, something like that, where it's either in a reward or at an auction. I think it's bigger than just winning something at an auction. It's an advantage. Like, what else could be an advantage besides something we haven't seen? I think it's just an extra vote or the ability to say you can't vote at tribal. Like, you can pick someone and say you can't vote. But I'm excited to see it.
That would be cool. That would be cool if they just said you get whoever gets that advantage gets to say that person doesn't get a vote. That could be really. I mean, I don't know if I'd have to see how it plays out before I say whether I'd like it or not. But I'm kind of agreeing with you where I think it has to do something with the votes because nothing else would really blow our. I don't feel like anything would really blow our minds right now unless it had to do with those votes. Nothing would be that much of a twist that they've never seen it before unless it had to do with the votes because they've exhausted a lot of stuff. At this point.
Yeah, they've tried. I mean, they've tried a lot of things. Another thing I could see is just a new idol with a different power. They love idols, as we have seen just in recent seasons. Just more and more idols. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a new special idol with instead of being just a vague special idol like in Carolyn, where no one knew really what it did. They have a specific thing, and maybe it's something with votes too. This idol could have to do with votes. I mean, I really don't know, but I could also see a new type of idol.
When do you think we're going to see this twist? That's kind of what I'm wondering. Like, how late are they going to get into this? You think it's going to be at the merge, or you think an episode after the merge, or maybe after a tribe swap? Like, when do you think they're actually going to get into this?
I don't think it. When we do the tribe swap, I don't think they go back to having 3 tribes. They'll probably go down to 2 tribes.
Yeah.
So I think we may see it then if it's a team advantage, but then if not, then it has to be the merge. And if you can't introduce it past the merge, once the merge hits, you can't if you're down to final 7, you can't just introduce some twist. So we're going to see it by episode 7 or 8.
Yeah, and I know that not this week, but next week's they got the 2 hours. So maybe nothing happens there. Maybe that's when they get the tribe swap, and then they don't give much about the advantage, and maybe the week after that you might get the advantage, or maybe they're trying to speed through to actually get to the point where the advantage is in the game.
Yeah, I don't know about this double episode. It seems kind of early to have it, but
I feel like the post merge is going to be really good this season, and they don't want to either have to force an episode into 2 episodes into an hour post merge, or maybe there's enough blindsides that happen post merge they don't feel like they need to have one follow the other. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times what will happen is that's only when one alliance is decimated, and they're like, all right, they're going to go obviously, so we'll have that be the first episode, and then the next episode will be like, okay, where does everybody stand now? I feel like this season we might not have that much.
Yeah, and do you think this is from a storytelling point of view where you're saying let's double up now because it's gets a little predictable, or do you think it's some scheduling thing with CBS where March Madness is coming up, they can't do an episode now, and do you think it's I don't know which one it is. I wish we knew.
March Madness doesn't really have an effect on the show anymore because March Madness starts on Thursdays, doesn't it? The first round games aren't on Tuesday and Wednesday on CBS. They're on TBS or True TV or something. So it doesn't really have as much of an effect because it doesn't start till Thursday.
Okay, so yeah, I guess we can assume maybe that's when it gets a little predictable. So, yeah.
Maybe not even predictable. They just had to do a 2-hour episode eventually, and maybe they just decided to do it now. Maybe it's not even predictable. Maybe they just were like, maybe it's that good of a season where there really aren't that many bad episodes.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be great. Maybe there isn't a bad episode this season. That would be totally ideal. Okay, let's get back to the power rankings. I ended with ninth place Will out of 16 people here. And at 10, I have Max. And the reason I have Max so low, I think, what'd you have him at 4?
Yeah, I had him at
Um,
4.
I have Max so much lower than you, just because I know Tyler is wary of Max, and he's being very foolish, he's being very pompous, and people can figure out quickly this guy's here to play, he's clearly a smart guy, he's getting naked all the time. I don't know what he can weird people out, and I think Joaquin and Tyler, all they would need, and I said the same thing about Shireen, all they need is Carolyn, and there you go. And even Shireen might be. I know Shireen loves Max, but if she saw an opportunity to take out a real gamer, then I see that happening. Not totally happening, but it's certainly a possibility. And I think he's much more likely to go home than Carolyn, who's the only white collar I have ranked above him.
Yeah, I don't think Max is in real danger this week, though. Like, you have him that low, but even you're kind of agreeing here. Like, you just think white-collar tribe, it's harder to predict. That's why you have him down there, right?
Right. Yeah,
Like, it's
white
not
collar
what
is.
happened there because you don't think that Max is going to be the one to go this week. He's in 10th place. You got to have somebody in 10th. Like, the middle ones are hard to really organize. At least to me, it's hard to organize.
Right. And the white collar tribe is just wide open. We saw them go to tribal, and then last week we just got nothing about their kind of alliances or dynamics. But I kind of leaning towards you now that you think they're just not going to go to tribal, and I actually, the more I'm thinking about it, the way last episode went, I think they probably have they're the least likely tribe to go to tribal.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. I think that they wanted to play up like blue collar has the most chance to go to tribal, and then no collar might be the surprising one where they end up losing and then Nina ends up getting voted off. I just don't see white collar going this week. I really don't. I don't feel like they've had enough of a storyline where where there would be like any reason for anybody to vote someone off. They haven't told us enough yet. Because like they haven't really delved into how far down is Joaquin on the totem pole. Where does Carolyn stand now that she has the idol? Where is Tyler and all this? Like we don't really get enough of it, and I don't feel like they might get into it this week, but I don't feel like they're just going to get into it and then have them vote someone off because they've developed the other storylines just so much further.
Right. I mean, always, they could open with white collar, then give them a little heavy time pre-challenge, and then that's what we get, and that's what, that could happen too. The editing's been good this season, kind of bouncing around.
So far,
last week we opened with the blue collar tribe, and then they didn't go to tribal, so it's not, I mean, they've been doing a good job at keeping us guessing, which is always fun.
Yeah, because you hate when if they start off an episode with a tribe, that means they're going to tribal. Because I really thought blue collar was going to go last week, and because they just showed that opening, and I was like, well, normally the opening, if they showed something that strategic, you would think that was going to play into the end of the episode. That's why I'm thinking that was a setup for this week, and blue collar might lose, which I'm all for because that would make this season really awesome. Because then each tribe has lost one person, and it's an even playing field again.
Right, yeah, we're definitely rooting for blue collar to go to tribal, and not that I don't like them at all, it's that we don't know anything about their tribe because they haven't gone. I mean, we know some things, but it doesn't really shake out until you vote somebody off.
Yeah. At number 10, I have Carolyn. I don't know if I said that already. I don't remember. But I have Carolyn at 10. Once again, she's my fourth white collar, but I just don't think white collar is going, and if they do, I think it's got to be Joaquin because that's the only one we've been hinted is away from the alliance. They haven't hinted that there's any feuding with the rest of them, so I just don't think that Carolyn would go. I have Carolyn at 10, but I had to put her somewhere. I really didn't know where else to put her.
Right, yeah, I have Carolyn at 8, so not far away. I'm probably thinking along the same lines that she's in a little bit of danger, but nowhere near the bottom.
Yeah.
I have at 11. I have Joaquin, and this might sound high, but if you're Shireen, Max, and Carolyn, and let's say they are tight and they do have this alliance, who are you more afraid of, Joaquin or Tyler?
Probably Tyler. Tyler's more of a gamer than Joaquin.
Exactly, and these are gamers. These are savvy white. We have Shireen, Carolyn, and Max. Those are 3 fans of the show that know the game really well, and Joaquin kind of seems like this carefree guy. You're living with them. If if how into Survivor they are. Like probably you get an idea. And Joaquin, though he lied with the deceit thing and he voted against them, I think it's like, wow, this guy just isn't a savvy player at all. I'm not really worried. Whereas Tyler, he seems to be very, very savvy. He seems to be in a good relationship with Joaquin, a good relationship with Carolyn. He and Max, we've seen, Max calls him the big man. It's up to him. He's floated really nicely in the middle of that tribe. And I think that's, even though he's shown trustworthiness and voted with them, I think that is actually more threatening than Joaquin, who's just like, whatever, let's lie and, deceive.
Well, there's one thing that there's one thing from last year that I remember. Jeremy was a gamer, and Jeremy said at the end of the season, it's harder to play with people who don't know how to play the game than it is to play with people who do, because you can kind of predict what Tyler's going to do. It's hard to predict what somebody who doesn't understand the game, they don't have motives, they don't have reasoning. They might think they have reasoning, but it's not the way somebody who loves the game and really thinks about the game all the time would think. So I don't know. I just think that they're smart enough where they don't want that wild card of Joaquin, who could do anything just because he really doesn't understand the game as well as everybody else.
I hear you there, but Jeremy also was saying that after getting voted out pretty early and kind of used it as a excuse a little bit to say, yeah, we had all these people who didn't know what they were doing. But in that season, San Juan del Sur, there were so many people that didn't know what they were doing, and I think that's what caused all this chaos and kind of just weird players getting far and all the power players going early, just because there were a lot of people who just didn't know the game at all.
Well, and the fact that
Joaquin is kind of... What's that?
I was saying, and the fact that you had duos. That's what made that season a little weird, too, is because you had John and Jacqueline, they were 2 guaranteed votes, so it was easier to swing in that season than it is in this one. That's why people who didn't understand the game, when they had somebody else sitting right next to them who didn't understand the game, and you knew exactly that they were going to vote together, made it a little bit harder to determine, it made them more powerful. Whereas in this season, you're right, Joaquin is just one guy. He's not 2 votes.
Yeah, it's just we have this really savvy tribe and Joaquin, kind of. And not that he's a bad player, he just isn't, he doesn't know the game that well. So if I'm Max, Shireen, and Carolyn, I'm saying, Joaquin can stick around. I'm way more fearful of Tyler. So that's why I have Joaquin. He's still low. I'm not saying he's safe or anything, but I have him at 11.
Yeah, and my 11, I have Will. I don't know. Will, like we said, is he really going to fall below Nina? Probably not. But just in case there are bad repercussions for some reason, and Jen, Haley, and Joe are mad at him for some reason, or if he blows a challenge completely like he did last week, I could see Will going. So I have him at 11. As the 4th. Yeah, I have him as the 4th no caller. I think it's clear it's either him or Nina. It's just going to depend on, does he mess up really bad again, or is Nina actually good at challenges? She just didn't participate last week. So we really don't know because we haven't seen Nina do really much in the challenges.
Are we at the point where you can't sit people out back-to-back challenges, or is that only when they do reward and immunity?
It's only when they do 2 challenges in the same episode. So, yeah, it would be reward and immunity.
So, yeah, Nina could easily sit out again, and then Will has to do it, and then... Oh, wait, actually, they're down to 5.
Well, she can't sit out now.
Right. Never mind. What? I don't know what I'm talking about. Right. They all have to play. So either one of them could screw up the challenge. Okay, at number 12, and now we're getting really down to the bottom here, I have Tyler, and pretty much it's the same thing. I should have just said this earlier. It's the same thing I just said. If I'm that threesome on white collar, I'm way more afraid of Tyler than I am Joaquin, even though Joaquin is, a guy who's already voted against you. But that's it on Tyler. So you can do 12 now.
All right, at 12, this might seem a little high, but I have Mike. And I'm going to say this with Mike. It's the same reason I didn't think Nina was going last week, because they showed it too much. And I don't think Mike is going to be the first guy to go, because I feel like they're trying to throw us off a little bit. And I think it's going to come down to 2 people on blue collar, depending on where Sierra and Kelly fall. I don't see them getting rid of Mike before they get rid of Dan still. I still think Dan's weaker, and yeah, Mike might rub people the wrong way, but I just don't think that Mike's going to be the one to go, because he is strong, and he has proven that he's strong in the challenge. He has been good in the challenges. Yeah, it took him forever to get through the knots, but, he's been good enough. Dan, yeah, he surprised everybody, but he surprised them. Are you going to rely on somebody who surprised you because they were good once? Or or are you going to rely on somebody who has been consistent? That's my whole thing. I don't think Mike's going. I think he's they're trying to play with us on that one.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you here. Hey, we have Mike and Dan who are clearly annoying their tribe mates, and if you're going to pick one of them to go first, it's probably going to be Dan, just because he's been annoying for longer, and he's just not as strong in challenges. I mean, we haven't seen him like mess up a challenge, but you can't by any means say Dan is stronger or more valuable than Mike. I mean, it's yet to be seen. So if Mike really is the one who screws up the challenge, which is pretty unlikely, and that's why they go to tribal, maybe. But I guess what it comes down to with Mike is how annoying is this whole firewood work thing? Like, is it going to be a 2-minute thing that we see, or is it a 5 or 6 minute fight that really, sets the whole tribe off, gives a negative energy? Because if he's really negative, that can really screw with the tribe, and you got to get rid of that negative energy.
Well, I'm going to say this. I think that this wood thing, because they showed it in this episode too, in episode 2, I think that this is going to be a huge thing that divides this tribe. I feel like this is going to be the division. But I don't feel like Mike is going to go home because of it right away. I feel like somebody else is going to come out of this looking worse than Mike somehow. I feel like there's just going to be something that happens that's going to rub people the wrong way even more than Mike did. I think I know who it is. I think it's going to be Lindsay. I don't know why I think it's going to be Lindsay. I just have an inkling. They showed her in the preview, and she was going at it with Mike. And a lot of times what happens is the person who feuds with the stronger guy ends up going home because they side with the strength, and they get rid of somebody else who's also negative. And even though they weren't wrong first, they're weaker. And I think that's going to end up being Lindsay's downfall. I have Lindsay real low this week, and I think she's in trouble.
Okay. Yeah, I have actually Lindsay a lot higher, but that is a good point. I think Rodney has a pretty good grasp with the women on his tribe, and kind of Lindsay is pretty tight with him. I don't know if Rodney's going to let that happen. The thing will be when Mike flips out, whose side does Dan take? Is Dan going with the foursome like he did when he was playing basketball in episode 2, or is it going to be more like episode 1 where Mike was his only friend and now he's got to get Mike's back? If Dan sides with Mike, then it could be Dan that goes, and I have Dan lower than Mike on my blue list, which tough break for Dan if he goes.
You know what I wouldn't count out either, and I know they haven't really hinted at this much, but I wouldn't count out Mike finding an idol. Just because if he knows he's in trouble, I could see him going off in the woods, and I could see him finding it. I mean, Carolyn found it. Mike's a fan of the show. I could see Mike going out there and finding an idol and end up playing it and saving himself if he is the one who's in trouble, and he could get rid of Lindsay or Rodney, whichever one he feels like needs to go more. Because I could see something like that happening, because people are finding him real easy these days. And Mike's a big enough fan, and if he knows he's done.
That's very true about them being easy to find. I mean, all you have to – I mean, and this whole tribe knows there's an idol because
that's what I'm saying. They all know.
Upfront. Dan and Mike were very upfront saying, look, there's a bag of beans and a smaller bag of beans with a clue, and we took the regular bag of beans. Even though Sarah and Lindsay didn't believe him, yeah, there's an idol there, and the whole tribe knows it. So, yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really thought about, they haven't spent a lot of time on people looking for idols, and I know they really only show it when someone's about to find it. But even any mention of it, or it seems kind of, especially on the blue collar tribe, we haven't really seen anything about an idol. I will go now.
I hear you.
13, I have Shireen, and I just think if they do go to tribal again, I think she's just the weakest on her tribe, and she already blew one challenge, and if she blows another, it's too much to recover from. And I know she's in this alliance with Max and Carolyn, and I know I've kind of said Tyler could be really, Tyler's in danger too. But if Max and Tyler do have a good relationship, they can just say, look, let's do Carolyn, Max, Tyler, keep the idol in our hands, keep 3 strong, keep Joaquin for strength, and then Shireen, see you later. And also, Shireen is a savvy game player, so in these white collar people, they're gonna want to look for threats to take out. And if you can take out a threat strategically and a physical liability in one swoop, then why not? So that's why I have her that.
Okay, at 13, I have Joaquin. I think I've said enough about Joaquin. I just think that if white collar goes, he's going to be the one to go. I also have him above the lowest blue collar and lowest no collar. So I think Joaquin has the least chance out of the bottom of the totem pole people to go home. But I think if white collar does for some reason go, he's gone. I don't think they're going though. Joaquin, I have at 13 just in case.
Yeah, I've said this before. Just with Joaquin, he's so non-threatening, like strategically wise. He's not like a player, you know. And I mean, he may become one, but as of now, he just doesn't know the game well. And if I'm on that white collar tribe, I'm just not worried about him because he'll help us in challenges. He'll help me not go to tribal council again. Because if we're looking at this white collar tribe, and let's say they do lose, if you're voting someone out, you're like, how do you vote out Joaquin in that situation? Then you leave yourself with Shireen, Carolyn, Max, and Tyler. And Tyler is a big, strong guy. I get that. Max isn't anything special. And then you have these two women who are definitely not the most athletic.
Well, my thing here is with them, they know the game so well that they know not this week, but not after this vote, but after the next vote, there's probably going to be a tribe swap. It always happens around 4 people being voted off. That's normally when the tribe swap happens. And I feel like if they lose this week, they might not get rid of Joaquin. But if they lose next week, I think Joaquin's done. Because I think they'll know that the tribe swap is coming. And if they're iffy on where Joaquin stands, they have more trust in Tyler, Carolyn, Shireen, Max. They'll get rid of Joaquin. Even though he's strong, they might say, hey, there's going to be a swap coming up. Let's get rid of Joaquin and hope there's a swap. Because they do. I mean, they've watched every season. They know this game inside and out.
Right. And then when I do my power rankings for next week and Joaquin's still around, he might even be lower. And, yeah, we have to see the episode. But for this week,
Yeah.
I feel like Joaquin, if they do go to tribal, they're going to want to keep his strength. And he doesn't know the game well enough to be a threat. Okay, so at 14, I have Mike. And I'm just going to rattle off my end of the list here because we've talked about most of these people already. I got Mike at 14, Dan right below him at 15 because I think if blue collar does go, it's going to be one of those two. They've just been shown to be really on the outs of their tribe. And then at 16, Nina, just because she's the most obvious boot to go on either of the tribes. Like if white collar goes, it's very up in the air. If blue collar goes, I think it's between Dan and Mike. If no color goes, it's like more sure than the other ones that it's going to be Nina. And I would be so shocked to see Will go, and obviously one of Joe, Jen, or Haley go. So Nina there at the bottom of my power rankings.
Okay, yeah, I have Lindsay at 14, which is the surprising one because I actually do think it's going to be between Lindsay and Dan. At least I think those are going to be the two who they're going to be the ones who are kind of like the victims of just being on opposing sides. I don't feel like Rodney's going to go, and I don't feel like Mike's going to go because they're stronger. I feel like they're weaker. They're in that alliance. They're aligned with somebody who's stronger than them. If their side loses the numbers, they're going to go home. One of them, either Dan or Lindsay. I feel like Sierra and Kelly are two in the middle. I don't think they're going to go home. I still have a good feeling about Mike. I don't think Rodney's in any trouble this week, so I think it's either going to be Lindsay or Dan who goes. So I have Lindsay at 14. Nina at 15 for all the reasons you said. Nina's an obvious boot. If no collar goes, Nina's gone as far as I'm concerned. We tried to make the arguments for why Will could go. I don't think Will's going. I think Nina's gone. And then at 16, I have Dan because, yeah, they showed him in a more positive light last week. I still think that he could get this edit where, he started off as the outcast, he started off terrible, and now he's moving up, and he's starting to get in the good graces of the tribe. But it's just, I think he goes before Mike because they have to keep Mike's strength. And, yeah, he might annoy them, but you have to keep him longer than you have to keep the guy who really is just the class clown of the tribe.
Right, and if they're both equally annoying, then you pick to keep Mike because he's so much fit and stronger.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, that wraps up the power rankings. We had some predictions from our listeners or our fans, as Phil calls
Our fans.
So I'll just go through these. If you want to, we can talk about them. So Jake the Snake says he thinks blue collar is going to tribal and that Dan goes home. That's a pretty good guess.
Yeah.
I think it's between no collar and blue collar going. And yeah, Dan, like we said, we've talked about that. He's definitely at the bottom. And then Timothy Smith had like a rant about Max, and I'm gonna read the rant.
I saw this. I wanted to talk about this because I saw this. I was hoping we'd talk about this one.
Yeah, let me read it. So Max is a douche. He's a camera hog, quoting from previous seasons, talking about how he's a student of the game. In parentheses, we all think we are, and he's trying to act like Hatch. give it a rest, Max. Do you think when fatigue sets in, the true Max will come out? With his edit of talking himself up, I predict and hope a non-student of the game, example Joaquin or Rodney, blindsided him pre-merge. He says, thoughts on Max's edit, positive or negative edit. And we've talked about Max a
I
little bit.
I think it's a negative edit though.
I don't. It's not. I'd say it's neutral because I think he's being very scholarly and academic. Where it's not. They're not really showing us. It's kind of up to you to decide, and it's kind of based on how far he goes. But he says these just kind of weird. In the premiere, he was saying like, "I'm not disappointed they lied. I just would have done a better job lying." Like stuff like that. Just why do you need to say that? And when No Color was trying to make their decision on the opening mat. He said, "Oh, look, No Color can't make the decision. You need a white collar to go over there?" Like, why say that?
Max, the thing with Max is he knows that the cameras are on, and this is a show that he loves. He wants to get as much screen time as he can. He didn't come out there to just be a nobody. If he's the third boot, if he's the first boot, if he wins the game, he wants to be the most remembered player from this season, which is going to be hard to do. So he's out there trying to one-up everybody. I feel like it's a negative edit in terms of he would be a villain. I don't feel like he's a hero. He's a villain. Hatch had a negative edit, even though Hatch won the game. He still would have been a villain had he been allowed to come back for heroes versus villains. So when I say villain, I mean in that term. People are still going to love Max. He's witty. He's sarcastic. He's annoying. Whatever you want to say about him. He's got that vibe of previous villains where Sandra, where she's lippy, Courtney, where she does what she does. Rob Cesternino would be a villain. Like, there are villains out there who everybody still roots for. And I feel like that's Max's edit. I would consider that a negative edit because they very rarely win.
See, I wouldn't consider that negative edit because, especially nowadays, people love the strategy, the moves, the idols, the blind sides. That the villains are kind of they become the heroes almost. Like, it's positive if you're the one the mastermind. Everyone loves that title, and everyone loves to root for someone who sets like plans into action. So I think the edit for Max it's a good edit. It just depends what he does, and we've only seen 2 episodes, so it's kind of hard to say if it's which way he's really leaning. They're showing to be this really smart, savvy player who loves the game and is a little he's verbose and a little into his ego, and he's kind of playing this character, this professor type. So if they're setting up him to fall on his face, then I could totally see that happening. Or they could be setting him up for being actually a really great savvy player. So I think it's too early to tell whether Max is getting good at it or a bad at it. I certainly don't get like negative vibes. And Timothy said he's a douche. I don't see like douche vibes from him. I just see someone who is very into the game and like you said, knows it's a TV show and wants to be the star. And he thinks he
wants to be the star. And I don't have a problem with that. You said everybody roots for the person who's putting plans into motion and succeeding at them. Right now, we haven't really seen Max putting any plans into motion. We saw him walk naked into the water. We saw him be mouthy. But that's all we really saw from him. We haven't seen him granted, it's way too early, so we haven't really seen his blind sides and stuff. Right now, what I'm getting from him is he's a lippy villain. And I think that Timothy Smith might be onto something here. I could see a tribe swap happening and somebody who really doesn't know the game, like a Will or a Rodney, blindsiding Max out of the game because they just had the numbers. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of. Are you rooting for Max?
I like Max. I like this whole cast. I don't know who I'm rooting against yet. The only one I just don't like the way they edited Nina last week. That's the only thing I haven't liked so far this season. Otherwise, I'm not rooting against anyone. I like all of them. I think all of them so far, if any of these people won so far, I would not be mad. Granted, that's going to change as the season goes on, but there's nobody who I'm like, oh my God, they're just, that's just a terrible character on the TV, other than what they did with Nina last week.
Yeah, Nina's the only one where I really wouldn't mind if she were to go home, and especially last week how Vince went home, this really kind of eccentric guy who's a life coach, and he was paranoid. Vince was great TV.
Yeah.
I'm rooting for Jen because she's my winner pick. But yeah, and then Timothy Smith also said, Joaquin is surprising me. He's not an idiot like I thought pregame. He dominated the challenges. He has this carefree attitude. He hopes Tyler and Joaquin get something going. What do we think about Joaquin and where he could finish is the question.
I'm surprised by Joaquin too. If Joaquin can make it out of this early stage of the game, Joaquin could go really far because he won't seem threatening once a merge happens. Yeah, he could win some challenges, but I don't think anybody's going to sit there and be like, oh man, Joaquin is going to beat me at the end. And I could see Joaquin going to the final tribal, somebody thinking he's a GOAT, and if he's not really pissing too many people off, he could end up winning the thing. I don't think it's going to happen, but he could win. He has been surprising. I thought he'd be an easy first boot. The fact that So Kim went before him, I mean, anything could happen with that white-collar tribe. They're the hardest one to rank. You there?
Yeah, I kind of lost you a little bit there, but I think I hear what you're saying. You did say that he might not be a threat post merge, and that's what I mean. He's a pretty ripped, big guy, and he has this white collar label on him. So I think if it's on an individual game, that's for Joaquin. I think he's doing a great job so far, and especially kind of dodging the whole blame with the so vote. But other than that, I think, yeah, that's going to be his thing in the merge. Is he just too much of a physical threat? And and it's hard to see someone really giving him $1 million, but it depends on the game he plays. So we'll have to see.
And who he's sitting next to, because there's been plenty of times where people think that they're bringing a GOAT to the end, and in reality, they are the GOAT. They don't even realize. You know what I mean? So there's plenty of times that happens. And Joaquin might not piss that many people off because he really doesn't understand the strategy of the game. That might help him. What's up?
Yeah, like I guess when you said bringing a goat, and then you end up being the goat, I think that's like Stephanie in Guatemala. Like she thought Danny was someone who wasn't really playing the game, and that she was kind of the power player, and then realized that like no one liked her and that she kind of was a bully, and Danny won that pretty handily. Let me read another prediction here. I'm betting blue collar will go to tribal, and thinking Dan will go. That's from Jokesters123. That's the exact same thing that Jake the Snake said. So, yeah, that's totally a possibility. And
it's like all safe.
Says if white collar goes to tribal. What that?
It's all like safe predictions because they're just like everybody's kind of thinking that blue collar is going to go, and if they go, it kind of seems like Dan's the obvious boot. I have Dan at the bottom of my power rankings, but I would not be shocked if Dan doesn't go home this week.
Right. Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. And then Edwin Hernandez said, if white collar goes to tribal next, I predict it will be Shireen. If blue collar goes, it will be Dan. And if no collar goes, it would be Will. And I don't agree with the Will thing. I think Nina is just way lower. But yeah, we've talked about it already. Could happen. We'll have to see. Anything else, Phil? I'll give an update on the boot list game. If you submitted a boot list, make sure you are a subscriber because I checked the other day, and it was like 5 more people who had entries in, and they were subscribers are now not subscribers, so that won't count. So if you are playing the bootless game, make sure you're a subscriber, or you can't win the buff.
Yeah, because you got to be a subscriber to win the buff. So if you subscribe and then unsubscribe, you're not a subscriber, even though you were a subscriber when you did it. So like you got to stay a subscriber. Like that's
Right. And MVP voting for last episode, it was a tie between Joaquin and Dan. And I guess
we kind of overlooked Joaquin.
That leaves it up to us. Yeah, we did, but we didn't see much of him. I mean, yeah, he did well at the challenge, but so did Dan, and Dan also improved his game socially. So I feel like, yeah, the challenge they both did well. And I know Joaquin did the shooting, whereas Dan let Sierra do the shooting. But they both, did okay in the challenge and made sure they weren't going to tribal. What did Joaquin do? He just stood with Tyler and had a confessional about, the nudity with Tyler. I don't see how that's MVP.
I think the surprise with Joaquin is that he didn't make more of an ass out of himself, and that's kind of what's – I feel like neither of these people are really so much MVPs as they just are overcoming the negative edit they got the first episode. So, yeah, they're both improving their game. There was really nobody who played like a dominant game that episode. It's hard to do this episode by episode because there are going to be some episodes where it's just predictable or nobody really does anything. So Yeah, I mean, we still have Joaquin and Dan as the bottom, like near the bottom of our power rankings. So did they really improve their position that much? Only time's going to tell. But for now, I think that it goes to Dan just because, I mean, we nominated him. We overlooked Joaquin. So I think that, we both thought Dan played a better game than Joaquin this week.
Right, and it's not that Joaquin did anything wrong. It's just we didn't get to see much. And if you watched Rob has a podcast, their recap, Steven, who gives out the fishies, he didn't even give out a fishy this episode. So I mean, it is tough to have to pick an MVP from that episode. But yeah, Dan, he did a good job. So we'll give it to him. You have anything else, Phil?
No, this week we'll probably try to do Wednesday night again. As long as internet is compliant, we'll have our recap up after the East Coast after it's East Coast and Live.
Yeah, we'll probably try to do within 5, 10, latest 15 minutes after.
Yeah, we'll just update the boot lists and then just go.
Okay. Yeah, and feel free to comment, make predictions, and especially on our recap episodes, comment your prediction for the next episode. So on our show that we do Wednesday, comment there what you think will happen for episode 4, and then a week from today we'll be doing our episode 4 prediction show, and we can talk about your predictions, or if you have questions, you can tweet at us at Phil _ Will. That's our Twitter. Okay, thanks for listening, and hope you enjoyed it.